Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Anggraeni Khusuma Dewi. My student ID number is 190810300 and 2. Okay, now I will be talking about my journal investigation with analyzing and evaluating Coursebook. Alright, I will start with the content of the journal. I divide it into 5 parts, such as the first is journal title, the second is author's name, and the third is research problem, and the fourth is theories employed, and the last, results and discussion. Okay, let's see and listen carefully. Here we go! The first part is journal title. The title of the journal I've been investigating is an analysis and evaluation of 2 English textbooks for second graders of junior high school. This journal was published on 2018 by Ling Tera with a volume 5 in number 1 and in the page 32 until 40. Okay, the next part is author's name. The next slide is author's name in the journal I've been investigating. That is Anita, Masyi'ah, and Dyah, Setyowati, Ciptaningrum. They are students of Universitas Negeri Yogyakarta with a major English education. Okay, the next slide is research problem. This study was conducted to find out the quality, strength, and weakness of 2 English textbooks. That is, when English rings a bell for grade H student and write an English Coursebook for junior high school student grade H. When English rings a bell was published by the Minister of Education and Culture, while Bright was developed by Nurzaida and published by Erlangga. In this journal, there is the strength and weakness. The strength and weakness which are provided can help the teacher to decide what actions should be taken to make the textbook more suitable for the learners. Okay, the next part is theories employed. In this part, I divided into 3 parts. There are definition, textbook evaluation criteria, and 3 domains of learning. The first part is definition. According to Brown, 2001, page 267, textbooks are the most common material for teaching and learning process. Meanwhile, Chinese word and 1984, page 1, defines textbook as books which are written and developed by experts. The material usually have been tested in a pilot study in real teaching situation before they are published to public. Textbooks have several important functions. Some functions of them are not by Chinese word. They are, the first is as resources for presentation material. It can be spoken or written material. And the second as references to learn grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and other aspects of English. And the third as sources of ideas for designing activities and text to teach students. And the last is as guidance or syllabus that can reflect the learning objective which have been determined from the beginning of the stage. Based on Wahab, 2013, page 56, points out several reasons why people evaluate or analyze textbooks. The first major reason is to adopt new coursebook to be used to teach or learn. The next reason is to find out specific strength and weakness in the existing material so that the further action can be taken. The last possible reason is that it can actually be beneficial for the teacher development and teaching. Therefore, textbooks should be designed based on curriculum. Curriculum 2013 is the newest and current curriculum implemented in Indonesia. It is clearly reflected in the organization of the competencies. The competencies in this curriculum are organized in three types, namely religiousness and social character, and the last is knowledge and skill. Okay, the next part in theories employed is textbook evaluation criteria. The first criteria by Pusat Perbukuan, or we can say BSMP. In evaluating the textbook, some textbook evaluation criteria can be used as guidance. The instrument of three major areas to be investigated, namely content, language, and presentation aspect. The first is the content aspect. What is the content aspect? The content aspect is intended to analyze the appropriateness of the content in the textbook. And the second is the language. The language is the second aspect which needs to be evaluated. And the last aspect is the presentation, which is related to the technique of presentation, the technique of teaching and learning, and the presentation coverage. Okay, the second criteria by Tomlinson. Tomlinson in 1998, page 7 until 20 also proposes textbook evaluation criteria. Good material are really important and needed in order to make sure that the teaching and learning process can run effectively. He proposes some characteristics of good material. The first is the material needs to achieve impact. It means that the material can help the student to feel ease, relaxed, and self-confident. Student can actually learn the target language better. And the second is what is being taught should be received by learner as relevant and useful. It means that when learners know that the material taught are what they need to know and will be useful for their daily life, they will do their best to learn the target language. Okay, the last criteria by Channing's Word. Based on Channing's Word in 1995, there are several criteria serving as a guideline for developing checklists for the evaluation. Namely, is the first corresponding to the learner's need. The second is reflecting the present and future of language. And the third is facilitating learning in various ways. And the last is having clear role as a support for learning. Okay, the last part in theories employed is three domains of learning. Beside the criteria from ELT expert, the three domains of learning should be evaluated in order to ensure that textbook have covered the three domains. Namely, is the first cognitive. What is cognitive? Cognitive is the knowledge domain which is related to the student thinking. And the second is affective. Affective refers to the domain which is related to emotion and values. And the last is psychomotor. What is psychomotor? Psychomotor is related to the motoric creativity. Okay, the next slide is about the result of the journal. That is, The results show that when English rings bell has fulfilled the criteria of a fair textbook, 78.6%, the book has several strengths. It provides many texts as models, material promoting the local culture, material covering the stage and scientific approach, and material covering 3 domains of learning. It is also has some weakness. It lacks retention, text for production stage, and conversation involving different situations. List of expression for transactional and interpersonal conversation. Material promoting the target culture, unity of ideas among units, material for speaking, reading, grammar, and pronunciation. And then material for autonomous learning, also activities in questioning stage, glossary and index, and activities in analyzing, evaluating, set and adaptation stages. Meanwhile, Bright has fulfilled the criteria of a good textbook. 87.2%. It has some strength. It provides attention, text for skill, the list of expression of transactional and interpersonal conversation. Conversation involving different people and situation. Material containing Western people culture and activities in the stage of 3 domains of learning. This book has also weakness. It lacks material and text containing local and national potential, the unity of ideas among units, glossary and index, and activities for evaluating and adaptation stage in the 3 domains of learning. Okay, the next part is discussion. In the textbook 1. Textbook 1 has been successful in providing many texts as model for students. It provides sufficient material which promote the local culture to make students aware of their identity and to introduce the local and national potential. It matches with the theory postulated by Anna 2013, page 17, saying that students will be more engaged in the teaching and learning process when their culture were accommodated in the material. Okay, the next slide is the aspect in the textbook. The analysis and evaluate the content aspect is textbook 1 is lacking in its retention as the reader do not provide sufficient material and explanation relating to the generic structure and the linguistic feature of the text present. And then in the production stage, the text for speaking and writing skill are not balanced. And also the list of expression for transactional and interpersonal conversation are not provided in the textbook. And the last in the content textbook is the book is also lacking in terms of the material and text which introduce students to the culture of student speaking countries people and promote international culture to raise student awareness diversity of English speakers. And analyze and evaluation in the language aspect. In the textbook 1 is lacking in its unity and coherence of ideas among units, meaning that this textbook doesn't have similarities between topics present in each unit. In terms of the material and activities for speaking, reading, grammar, and pronunciation, they are still lacking since the number of activities for those 4 aspects are limited. And the next aspect is the presentation aspect. Textbook 1 is still lacking in providing material which facilitates students to be autonomous learners, since the generic structure and linguistic feature of some texts are not provided. And the activities which facilitate one of the stage in scientific approach, namely questioning, are limited in the textbook. And then this textbook is also lacking in its glossary and index. Those two sub-aspects are not provided in the book. And the analysis and evaluation is related to the affective, cognitive, and psychomotor domains. In the textbook 1, lacks the activities which reflect analyzing and evaluating stage in the cognitive domain. In terms of the psychomotor domain, this textbook is also lacking activities for set and adaptation stage in the psychomotor domain. Okay, the next is in the textbook 2. Textbook 2 has been successful in providing the knowledge of generic structure and linguistic feature in the text present. The list of expression for transactional and interpersonal conversation are provided in the textbook. They are relevant to the criteria from Ciptaningrum 1995, page 15 until 17, stating that the textbook should facilitate the learning process in various ways and have a clear role as a support of learning. To analyze and evaluate, there is a content aspect, language aspect, presentation aspect, and etc. In the content aspect, textbook 2 has some weakness in the content aspect. The first is it lacks material and text which contain text and communicative events, leading students to be aware of their local region potential aspect in order to promote local and national potential. And the second is this textbook is also lacking in terms of the material which cover the local culture to maintain the student identity. This point doesn't meet the theory stated by Anita 2013, page 17, who believes that students are more engaged in the teaching and learning process when their culture were accommodated in the material. The material which promote international culture to raise the student awareness of diversity of English speakers are also lacking. And the next aspect is the language aspect. Textbook 2 is lacking in two sub-aspects. The first is the textbook does not have coherence and unity of ideas among units. It doesn't have similarities between topics present in each unit. The second is the presentation of material and practice for teaching vocabulary aspect. And the next aspect is the presentation aspect. Textbook 2 is still lacking and providing the summary as it is only embedded in the reflection session. The textbook is also lacking in its glossary and index. Those two sub-aspects are not provided in the textbook. And the last, analyze and evaluating this textbook is related to the affective, cognitive, and psychomotor domains. Textbook 2 is still lacking in providing sufficient activities for evaluating stage in cognitive domains and for adaptation stage for psychomotor stage. They are mostly covered, but it is not sufficient. Alright, that's all I tell information about the journal. Thank you so much for your attention and I hope this was clear. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.